A Sarasota native whose career moves are based on his desire to make a difference. He's a former state prosecutor and now a former Sarasota City Commissioner. But he was more than that. In 2020 and 2021, he was voted to be mayor of Sarasota, and he made a run for Sarasota County Commissioner position, but it didn't go as he planned. Hagen Brody is a man on a mission to do good and bring positive change to the community he calls home. Today, Mr. Brody is at a point where he's contemplating his next mountain to climb. Welcome to Suncoast, people.
Yep, thank you for having me.
You know, we generally try to stay away from politics and issues, but I know we're going to be touching on some issues and down along the way, but you know, the show really wants to focus on people in, like we say, your second mountain. Right off the bat, why did you even want to pursue a career in politics? I mean, you were a successful, prosecuting attorney, and why get into the mess of politics?
I think that it's, well, first of all, let me just say that I probably would not be in politics if I was not living in my hometown. Growing up here, I just had a fantastic childhood. I came from a working class family, but the opportunities that I had here in Sarasota, not just with the people and the nurturing community members, but also the natural environment. To me, it just provided so many opportunities that I don't think I would be where I am today without this community. And so I think that naturally instilled in me a desire or a drive to give back to this community, to make sure that other generations had those same opportunities, if not better. And so getting involved in the community was very natural for me. I started in philanthropy, getting involved in nonprofits and various organizations and boards. But I'm also a very proud supporter of our democracy and our country and our community. And I think it's so important to not just engage in organizations that you have an interest in, but also be engaged to some degree in politics, whether that's local or otherwise. And so for me, it was a natural progression.
Once elected, was it what you expected it to be?
I can't say that. I think I don't know anybody that would get into politics and say it was exactly what they expected. It is incredibly fulfilling at times, and it can be incredibly challenging at times. I think that you learn a lot, not just about the community, but about yourself. And so, yeah, there were some surprises along the way.
Let's touch on those, because surprise can be good and a surprise can be not so good. What's something you're particularly proud of that you were a part of?
For me, some of the concrete achievements over those years in office, I think about as being most important. And those mostly are community assets that we were able to, I think, improve or save for future generations. For me, it was all about ensuring, like I said before, ensuring that future generations have that same experience, if not better. And to me, that means community assets. So whether it was renourishing Lido Beach, giving Bobby Jones a new lease on life, and creating a new public park there, or really being a champion on the commission for the new Bay Park on the water. Those are things that I think are going to impact generations from now. I think are going to be meeting places not just for our community, but for our kids and our families. To me, when I think about those assets and the longevity and the quality of life that they bring and will bring to our community, not just to our city, but to our region. Those are the experiences that I think people, that I'm most proud of being able to have some part in, along with a lot of other people that went into making those successful.
Walk me through one. I mean, you mentioned Lido Beach, you mentioned Bobby Jones. Walk me through one program, one project, one achievement, and how that process worked.
You know, a lot of them have been issues. Bobby Jones and the Lido Beach renourishment were issues for years, if not decades. And so a lot of it was just figuring out how to bring these to a conclusion and to a place where we could get, where we could make a difference, make a change on those issues. Bobby Jones, there was a lot of conflict about how much of it should have remained a golf course versus this possibility, new idea of creating a public park out of some of that space. It's about 300 acres of public green space. And me personally, I felt it was so important to open up some of that property for public enjoyment across the board, not just for golf. The golf course was struggling. It was losing a lot of money, taxpayer dollars every year. And I really think over the course of probably it was 3 or 4 years of debating that issue, we were able to come to a place and have a plan that I think is going to be a wonderful, wonderful asset to our community. I think ultimately, it's not competing with the Bay Park, which is incredibly beautiful and different in its own.
It's a whole different animal.
In its own way. I think Bobby Jones ultimately will become known as kind of our central park, right in the heart of our city and our community. And we landed on a great plan, which keeps golf a part of that amenity, but also opens up a lot of the green space for other activities.
It sounds like there were some compromises that may have been made. And compromise seems to have become a dirty word in the world of politics and partisanship. What are your thoughts on compromise? Is it a dirty word?
No, I mean, I think that Bobby Jones was a great example of that, where we had people on all sides of this issue that wanted different things out of that public space. And ultimately, I think we were able to put forth a product that will satisfy many of those interests and many of those folks, but also add a lot to the community. I think compromise is really important at times. I think what it comes down to is the longevity of the success of that decision. So at times where I would be reluctant to compromise were times where I knew that a compromise may either be pushing that conflict down the road for another commission to deal with, or ultimately be the demise of whatever that decision was. And so I think compromise is important, but sometimes you have to stick to your guns.
Eric Arroyo, another former mayor, is a Republican. And I know over the time you had your agreements and disagreements. At least from the public viewpoint, it looked like you two really were allies on a number of levels and a number of things in your commitment to the community. Tell me about how that worked.
Well, not just with Eric, but as you know, most of the positions in this community are held by Republicans. For me, local office and government has very little to do with partisan politics, and
but it's become that way.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I can only speak for myself and my experience. I really tried to make it about the issues. I think it was Mayor LaGuardia once said in New York that a pothole is not a Democrat or Republican issue; it's a pothole. And I think, and you hear that a lot, and I think that philosophy is really important to put into practice in local government, because I think some folks, particularly that are really addicted to partisanship, have a hard time getting away from that. It's important to push back during those times and say, look, this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue for the betterment of the community. I feel like I got along with people from all stripes politically, and sometimes had disagreements with people from all stripes, including my own party. I mean, there were times where I challenged my party on issues because I thought they were really the right thing for our community.
As far as partisanship within one's own party, you mentioned different people within your own party who you disagreed with. How do you balance that? How do you come to a consensus just within your own party?
It's really about just keeping it on the issue. As long as we keep it and kept it on those issues, I think it was fine. But that does take work. There were times when we would have to steer away from or kind of just try to navigate around partisan arguments and issues and really attack the problem that the community was concerned about or that was at issue.
Are you the kind of person who would hold a grudge?
No, I think holding a grudge expends too much energy that could be redirected in a more positive and productive way. I think that grudges are human nature to a certain extent, and in my experience, I've found that acknowledging and moving past conflict and issues is a shorter path to a positive outcome.
What do you do with it? And we're getting a little psychological, philosophical here,
Sorry.
but how do you manage people who maybe do hold a grudge? I mean, how you're able to get yourself past, but how do you deal with individuals who maybe can't get over something?
I think in most instances, I mean, every situation, everybody's different, but I think in most instances, people will want to reconcile. I think there's a human nature. Grudges are a part of human nature. I also think there is a reconciliation drive inside of all of us. And so I think the hardest part for people is taking that first step. But I've found that once you kind of break through that first step and extend a hand, in whatever situation that is, usually people will reach out and accept that.
They'll come around.
Yeah.
They'll come around. Any regrets?
From my time in office?
Mm-hmm.
I think you always have some regrets. Of course, there's things that you wish you could have accomplished or done. I was mayor during a very uncertain and challenging time for not just
the peak of the pandemic.
Yeah, during the pandemic, and not just for our community, but for our country. It was a very tense time and a very uncertain time, especially for not just myself, but for our residents. And I could feel that it was palpable. There was a moment during the pandemic, during a vaccine event, where I think I could have handled myself a little better. It was a highly publicized event, an argument that I had with the city manager, an issue that I had with the city manager. I think about that moment a lot personally. I do regret how I acted that day. I feel like I let a lot of people down that day, including myself. And you live and you learn, and those are the way that, at the root of that issue are personal flaws that I now acknowledge and I'm trying to address. I hope that people that I offended will forgive me. When I think back about regrets, one thing that I do know is that nothing is perfect. Any challenge you have in life is going to come with some wish you could have done this differently, and that was definitely one of those moments for me.
Life is full of woulda, coulda, shoulda, right?
Yeah, but you try to focus on the positive and you try to learn from the negative.
Yeah.
And I think that's the really only way to do it.
And you say you've learned from that incident.
Oh yeah, I've learned. It was a moment of self-reflection. I don't know if people would remember it or not, but it was highly publicized, and I blew up at our city manager over some messaging, and I think that for me, it was very important that, especially in that moment, that people not only knew that we had a mayor, because in the past, our city government, for many people, just kind of flies below the radar. And I thought in that moment it was very important for us to really project leadership and guidance and stability. And in that moment, I failed at that, and it is something that I think about and regret.
Shifting gears a little bit, what do you do to relax? What do you enjoy doing, whether it's, cooking or traveling, or what's something that you just get a great pleasure from doing?
I do love cooking. And I don't know if that was, I've always liked cooking. I don't know if that was enhanced by COVID. I think everybody started to cook a little more during those times. But I love being in front of a grill. I really do. Love grilling steaks and ribs and whatever, particularly for company. But I also like to get outdoors, enjoy this incredible community and natural beauty. I kayak a lot. I like to fish. I was a tennis player back when, and still like to get out there and knock the ball around a little bit. Yeah, those are the things that, for me, athletics and cooking, those are times just almost personal therapy, times to kind of be to yourself and reflect on whatever the issue is you're dealing with and the issue of the moment. And I think those things provide me a lot of joy.
What's something that most people don't know about Hagen Brody? I mean, you shared a couple things of how you enjoy, your time. Is there any surprise do you do needlepoint or collect Hummels or or are you just an open book?
I am I think not necessarily by preference, but I think being in, having been in politics, and I do think that you're an open book to a large extent. One thing I love doing is every chance we go up into the mountains and do some hiking.
Florida has beautiful mountains.
Yeah, we try to get up to the Carolinas or Georgia and do some hiking just to change the scenery.
Yeah.
I think is important. I enjoy that. I did that over the holiday break, and it was just wonderful.
Yeah, to recharge.
Yeah, recharge and just get out of cell phone service and really get back to nature.
What's next? I know you get asked that a lot right now. Have you had a chance to think about what possibilities are out there or anything you're able to talk about?
Unknown at the moment. It was important for me to take some time off after I left office in November and just spend time with friends and family through the holidays, and it was wonderful. So now I'm really starting to think about that exact question. But for me, I've always found that doing things that challenge me and have some type of community impact or impact on others has always brought me fulfillment. So whatever I end up doing, I hope that those attributes are a part of it.
Would you like to stay in Sarasota?
Oh yeah. I love this community, and it's been, I've seen it change a lot since I was young.
Sure.
And it's really been fulfilling to be not just along for that ride, but to have had some small part of that change.
Hagen Brody, thank you. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
and
you.
sharing
Yeah, thank you.
some
Anytime.
stories. And want to thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you're watching. And feel free to send an email to info@suncoastpeople.com if you know someone who would be a great guest on the show. In the meantime, I'm Robert Tim. Thanks for watching.